This week we're studying Lesson 12 of Vocabulary. Now make sure you're taking notes on this. If I'm going too fast, make sure you pause the video so that you can get these notes down in your notebook before you attempt the homework. We have two sets of vocabulary root words that I'm fairly confident are familiar to you. The first is HYPO or HYPE. It's a prefix. It can mean a variety of things like under, beneath, down, or below normal. Oftentimes you hear the word HYPO related to medical terms. For example, if you've ever heard that a person has hypothyroidism, it means that their thyroid is functioning below normal. But for our sake and in this lesson, our first one is hypochondriac. It's a noun. Now, a hypochondriac would be a person who is always going to the doctor for any little sign or symptom of sickness. Our definition reads, a person unduly concerned with health and often suffering from delusions of physical disease. So this would be our person who gets a little sniffle and has to go to the doctor because they believe they're getting pneumonia. So this is a hypochondriac. Our second one is hypocrisy. It's also a noun. It's an abstract noun because it's an idea. This term is one that we're all familiar with. It's pretending to be what one is not, either thinking one way and acting another, or feeling one way and acting differently. For example, if a person is acting like they're in love, but inside they're really thinking, I'm just going to use this person, that's hypocrisy. We're all kind of familiar with it in different settings and in different ways. Your third vocabulary word related to hypo or hype is hypothermia. It's also a noun, subnormal temperatures of the body. So when we read the stories of a boat crash out of ocean and they're in the water too long and it's so cold they can't swim and they drowned, that's because they're suffering from hypothermia. Where I grew up in the snow, people would get lost in blizzards and they would find their bodies frozen and they would have suffered hypothermia as well. Our last one is hypothetical. It's an adjective. If you're in science class and you're reasoning what may happen and you come up with various different ideas of what may be the cause or the effect, you're coming up with hypothetical ideas. Our definition reads, involving an assumption made for the sake of argument or further study or investigation, imagined for purposes of example. Our second set of root words I believe you will also be more familiar with. It's THERM or THERMO, and it comes from the Greek word meaning warm. Our first word is thermal. It's an adjective. It's of, relating to, or caused by heat. It's designed to insulate in order to retain body heat. So if you go skiing, your ski wear may have thermal insulation. If you wear long underwear, that's thermal insulation. You might buy a flannel that has thermal insulation. The whole purpose is to keep the body warm. The next word is a thermal incline, and you may not be familiar with this word, but it's important to you if you ever go swimming in the ocean or surfing. This is the region in a body of water that divides the warmer, oxygen-rich surface layer from the colder, oxygen-poor, deeper water. This first picture basically shows you the different layers of the water. You have the surface of the ocean where we would possibly swim if we were going for a swim. And then you have the deeper ocean where you have more sea life. And if we're looking specifically at the thermal incline, we have the surface of the ocean, which is about 200 meters deep. And then as you go deeper, if you are diving, the water gets a little bit cooler and a little bit cooler and a little bit cooler as you go down to deep ocean, which you'll notice on the chart here, 32 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit. That's pretty cold. So that middle section where the water's becoming cooler and you'd be diving deeper is the thermal incline. Our third word is thermocouple. It's a noun, and this is one you may not be familiar with, but you have a thermocouple in your house. So it's a device for measuring temperature that makes use of the way different metals respond to heat. So let's look at an example of a thermocouple. So in this picture on this website for inspection is an example of a thermocouple. So you can see you have your sensor here, and then you have all this tubing. Now this would be used in your house in your furnace. And it's put here, you can see the thermocouple, it's put by the pilot light so that it senses when the pilot light is lit so that it would keep the gas line open. So a thermocouple is pretty important within the makeup of your furnace and in various different appliances that we have in our homes. Our last word is thermonuclear, and it's probably a little bit more familiar to you. It's an adjective. It describes different kinds of weaponry, but specifically it's of or relating to changes in the nucleus of an atom with low atomic weight, such as hydrogen, that require a very high temperature to begin. So when you finish your notes, you're going to go ahead and use your notes for the homework that is on Canvas.